All right, so let's transition to the conversation about schools. There's some new polling that I think is really interesting to dig into. We can throw this tear sheet up on the screen. This is from Yahoo News. So when you ask voters what their top issue is, even if you're just talking about parents, only 5%, when they're thinking about the midterms, say that schools are their top issue. Overall, only 3% of Americans say that schools are their top issue. Saagar, I will give you one guess. What Americans say is their number one issue by far.
What is it?
It's the economy. Lo and behold, it's still the economy, stupid. 31%. So 10 times more people say that the economy is their number one issue. The next highest is healthcare. Also makes sense. 13% say healthcare, 10% say climate change, 10% also say coronavirus, 9% immigration, 8% changing the balance of power in Washington. All of these things more important to more Americans than schools. Again, 3% say schools. What also is interesting is even if you dig into that number, that 3%, okay, you're concerned about schools. What are your concerns? The largest concern is 18% say lack of funding for education is their primary issue. The next one is low pay for teachers. And then you start to get down to things like the way race is taught, about 7%, and mask mandates, 5%. Even if you look within that 7% that say what they're concerned about is the way that race and racism are taught, you actually find more people who feel that there's not enough discussion of the way that race has shaped America. So listen, all of this is not to say that CRT and the conversation about that doesn't have a lot of energy around it, because I think it does. I think it is definitely a motivating issue for the Republican base. But I would caution those on the right and those on the left who thought that the Virginia election was just all about race in school to take a look at these numbers and maybe reassess what voters are actually going to the polls based on. And we said it at the time. Look, 70% of the country thinks the country is on the wrong track.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's approval rating is somewhere in the high 30s or low 40s. That is really bad. Kamala Harris's approval rating is even worse, at like 28%. If you just look at those numbers and you look at the fact you've got a plurality of people that think that we are headed towards a recession, that's all you need to know to understand why there is a massive Republican wave brewing right now.
I don't know why this is so difficult for people to get. I mean, and I do, which is that it's hard for the media and for people who work in professional politics to just focus on the most basic levels of inputs in people's lives. And this is exactly what we try to do here on the show. Small p politics versus capital P. Capital P, critical race theory. There's a debate. The media is involved. It's a very convenient narrative for everybody. And once again, is it important? And is it even a motivating base factor for the Republicans? Absolutely. But why did people who voted for Joe Biden vote for Glenn Youngkin? Go and ask them. What do they say, Krystal? I was pissed off. To the extent I cared about schools, I was pissed off that my school was closed longer than everybody else. And 2, stuff is more expensive at the grocery store. You said you would go back to normal, and it's not normal. Why is that not enough of an explanation? There's actually a million things Biden can and should be doing if he wanted to be an effective president. I mean, as I've said it a million times, focus on the most basic level stuff. If you even had the headlines on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, trying to address the gas prices, drag the Saudi king over here and be like, hey, what are you doing? You need to pump oil. Same whenever it comes to our import exports. There are all kinds of near-term factors which could change the price of oil by almost 10 to 15%. Not overnight necessarily, but within a month. People would reward you for that, but you're not doing that. And nobody knows what you're doing. Heating bills, like we were talking about. It's interesting. A man contacted me who told me he lives in the rural Northeast. I won't say where he lives. He had to pay 100% more in propane costs in order to pay for his house. He said it wiped out 1/2 of his entire winter budget. What do you think is going on? Wow. This is not difficult. These are simple problems, actually. We have strategic reserves of propane, of heating oil, of oil all exactly for crisis reasons. Convene the governors and say, all right, let's get together. Let's see how much oil we got. Let's disperse it out properly. Let's drop the price. Same with the utilities. Many utilities right now are asking, I mean, I can go on forever, but this is just very basic level competent stuff, which him and the White House are not showing whatsoever. And if you did that, you would win. It's actually not, or maybe you would lose less. But really what it is that people feel, I think rightfully, as we covered on Tuesday, Joe Biden is not focused on the issues that matter most to them.
Yes.
And these are the issues that matter most to them. You've pointed out, and I still can't believe this, that PCR tests or whatever are required for kids in schools, and that who's covering the costs? That stuff is expensive. It's like $150 a pop.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if you were to try and do some school testing program and you made it all completely free, a lot of parents, speaking of schools, would say, hey, that's a great thing. I mean, I just keep talking about the most basic, competent level stuff. And instead, people here in DC want to focus on critical race theory or whatever, because it would not necessitate them to be like, can we change container stacking rules in Long Beach, California in order to increase the number of ports that go, or the containers that go through by 25%? That's a real thing, by the way.
How about we stop making our truckers basically indentured servants so that you could have enough truckers who would actually want to do that job.
Pass the trucker fund tomorrow.
I mean,
Congress could do that.
That's another issue that, that I tracked as well. Like, they're literally, some of these truckers, at the end of the week, they owe money.
They don't make any money.
It's true indentured servitude. So, yeah, you have a supply of truckers, because who the hell would want to do that job, right? So, yeah, I mean, there are things they could do to at least make people feel like we're trying. And listen, for better or worse, most of the time worse, the Trump White House knew how to drive a news cycle.
Yeah.
They knew how to make the media talk about what they wanted them to talk about. And the Biden White House is completely buffeted by the winds of whatever's in the news, and they're unable to take control of the narrative. They're unable to assert this, like, we got it sense. And so it's a complete and total mess, both from a perception point of view and also from a reality point of view. On the race in schools conversation, first of all, there is a true, genuine issue with the academic left and the sort of woke racism that I tracked in my monologue on Tuesday. That is a real thing, okay? It is not by any means a majority thing among the Democratic base or even among Democratic elites. And the idea that Joe Biden is some woke race warrior is so absurd. It's really, really silly.
Yeah, he's out to
I mean, it's just this dude is always 5 seconds from accidentally dropping some sort of ethnic slur, okay? That's more the issue with Joe Biden, ultimately. So even from that perspective, the idea that that's really what's driving and motivating independence and the broader American public, it just frankly feels really silly. Now, again, is it a base motivating issue? 100%. Yeah. And that ultimately matters. It mattered, I think, in these past elections. I think it matters for the midterms, because ultimately midterms is lower turnout overall. Who's excited? Who shows up? We saw in Virginia and in New Jersey, there was a huge surge in rural areas. Youngkin did even better with rural Virginians than Trump did, which is kind of, major warning sign for Democrats who kind of thought that they had hit bottom in terms of rural America. Clearly, they could do even worse. But it's important to keep these things in perspective, and the most basic truism still holds. The economy is the top issue. It is not even close.
And you found this Axios thing. Let's put this up there on the screen, which is that actually there is no true widespread COVID school backlash. It is just in keeping with the concept I've been trying to elucidate here, the dictatorship of the small minority, which is that the people who do care and are pissed off about schools, they care a lot, and they make that their number one issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
They care a lot. They're voting on it. This reminds me of the gun debate.
Yes.
Because liberals and those on the left would always point to look, these gun safety measures are really popular. Really, really popular. That's true. But their base doesn't vote on guns by and large.
They don't care that much. Right.
They don't care that much. It's not even close to their top issue. Whereas there's a significant chunk of conservatives who are really into the Second Amendment who actually do vote on the issue. So you have to look not just at, what is the top issue, but also what is uniquely motivating your base to vote. what is uniquely motivating independents to vote, what is uniquely motivating Republicans to vote. And so I think like the school issues kind of fit into that framework as highly motivating for the Republican base. But at the same time, the Democrats aren't doing a thing to get their base excited and give them a reason to go out and vote. A lot of people are sort of like hoping and wishing that maybe this, kind of lame infrastructure deal that just passed, maybe that's going to be the shot in the arm for Democrats. I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.